Hi everyone, my name's Lucy. Welcome to this afternoon's short webinar. We're really lucky we've been able to grab some time from Alister from Professional Cadetships Australia. He's an absolute expert when it comes to cadetships for students, and he's going to give up a little bit of his time to speak with us this afternoon. So I'd just like to start, as I always do, by acknowledging the country that we're meeting from today. So I'm in Cairns, which means I'm on the home of the Giveaway Irukandji people. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present, and particularly to their emerging leaders. And I'd like to extend that respect to the elders of the lands where you are joining us from today. Now, I'm going to hand you over to Alister. He's going to talk. He's got a great little video he wants to share as well. And then there'll be some time at the end for any questions that anyone might have. So take it away, Alister.
Thanks a lot, Lucy, and thank you for the opportunity. Study Work Grow is an unprecedentedly good organisation, I think, which does a whole lot. I was a careers advisor in another half life, and I wish we'd had Study Work Grow there. Our local Koori clans are Darug and Darkinjung, so I won't do an acknowledgement of country, but I'm in the Lower Hunter Valley and the Wollombi Valley, and the very strong Aboriginal presence here. So Professional Cadetships Australia, I set up 15 or nearly 16 years ago. Essentially what we do is we go out and try and get leading companies on board to offer Year 12 students cadetships. And the way the cadetships work is that the students apply in Year 12, and if they're successful, they start work from the beginning of first year uni. So in other words, we're sort of the middleman. We market the program in schools. We run the application process, we run first round interviews, and then we refer talent to individual companies who run their cadet selection. Now, the programs are offered essentially to all Year 12 students, but the companies involved are headquartered in Sydney. So students have to study and work in Sydney. We off and on run a program also in Melbourne where the same thing applies. And I still don't have clarity on the Melbourne program. I'm hoping it will run this year again. So why don't we show the film, Lucy, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Sure, just give me a second. I'll share my screen.
Yeah, right.
So I want that one. Okay, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent.
Are you thinking about pursuing a business career? Rather than waiting until university graduation, why not secure your future now with a business cadetship? The Business Cadetships program is in its 16th year. It provides Year 12 students from all schools with the opportunity to apply for a cadetship with leading companies in the financial services industry. Cadets combine paid work with study at the university of their choice. The program allows you to choose from a broad range of degrees, including economics, commerce, computer science, mathematics, and the humanities. UBS has been a part of the program since its inception. The top-ranking global bank places cadets in its Sydney and Melbourne offices, where they are employed throughout the business. A significant number of UBS cadets have gone on to work permanently at the bank following the completion of their cadetship. Here is what Georgina King, a former cadet who now works in equity derivatives sales, has to say about her experience as a cadet.
I initially applied for this cadetship as a spur of the moment, I'll give it a go. My mindset was have an open mind and opportunities will come to you. The application process is not just about the end goal. It's not about getting this cadetship. It is the experience that you receive on the way. So all the interviews you have, whether it is with professional cadetships or with actual UBS staff.
To gain a business cadetship, Year 12 students apply online to Professional Cadetships Australia, PCA. Successful applicants then undergo a one-on-one first round interview with PCA. At interview, we assess your suitability for a cadetship and discuss where you might be placed as a cadet. After interview, PCA refers selected candidates to companies placing cadets through the Business Cadetships program. Here's what Emily Whelan feels about her cadetship.
Because cadets do make up a good part of the overall cohort at UBS here in Sydney, you really do get an opportunity to have your say and take leadership, even if it is in your first year. I've been really lucky to be a part of a lot of networks at UBS that really encourage diversity, things such as the Women's Network, which enable mentoring, but also after work events. And also as an ally, I'm a part of the LGBTQI+ group, which promotes diversity throughout the firm as well.
In 2021, Barrenjoey Capital Partners, Australia's newest capital markets and advisory firm, placed cadets in Sydney through the Business Cadetships program. Barrenjoey will again be employing cadets in 2022. Have a listen to what Craig Stafford and Megan Kirby-Lewis have to say about cadetships.
At Barrenjoey, we're seeking the best talent on the street to help us on our journey to build Australia's leading financial services business. A cadetship at Barrenjoey promises to be a life-changing experience. You'll be trained by the best to be your best.
For me, the best thing about working at Barrenjoey is definitely the culture and the people. You really do feel like you're building a business from the ground up while working alongside some of the best in the industry.
This year, Macquarie Group, a global financial group and leader in capital markets and principal investment, will also be placing cadets through the business. Their cadets will be placed at their head office in Sydney. Cadet selection is in September and will entail candidates being interviewed by either UBS, Barrenjoey or Macquarie for placement. So open a world of opportunity. Visit the Business Cadetships website now and select online application.
Wow, that was really buffering, that film. I apologise that the film was actually, the video was out of sync with the sound. It must be something to do with Zoom and the internet tonight. So Donna and Vicky, I can send you a link where that won't buffer and it'll all come together. My apologies. Can I just ask before I go on where Donna is, where she's a careers advisor, and where Vicky is, which state they're in, if they can unmute.
Hi, Alister. I'm in New South Wales.
Hi,
so I'm in Sydney.
Okay. Yep.
I'm actually
Donna?
also in New South Wales. I'm not a careers advisor. I'm just a parent. We were given this link by our careers advisor through school.
Okay. And are you in Sydney or somewhere in regional
Sydney.
New South Wales, Donna?
Sydney.
Sydney. Please don't say just a parent, because if we didn't have parents, we wouldn't have kids, obviously. Okay. Well, the reason for asking that is not to discriminate. It's only that, as you heard me say, that our cadetship programs are really quite stood on Sydney, and it's because the companies offering the cadetships are in Sydney. And if we'd had, and we may soon get, people from interstate, it's a different ball game. So I'm just going to say 5 minutes worth about how this works. The first thing I'd say is that back in the day, in a previous century, cadetships were pretty de rigueur. In fact, most industries had them when I left school in another century. But over time, as more and more students have rightly or wrongly gone to year 12 and gone to university, cadetships have waned, and there are very, very few cadetships left out there. But Lucy and Study Work Grow recently put together a comprehensive list of what is out there. So that's something you might be interested in. But essentially, certainly in financial services with top tier companies, this is it for Australia. So you've got three very big companies. UBS, you may or may not have heard of. They're a top tier investment bank, global bank, headquartered in Zurich. In Australia, of course, they're headquartered in Sydney. They've been a part of the program, if you heard the video, since its inception 15 years ago. Macquarie Group, I'm sure you've heard of, aka Macquarie Bank. They had been a part of our previous program in engineering and technology. They've now joined Business Cadetships. And Barrenjoey, who you may not have heard of, they're only a couple of years old now. They're Australia's newest financial services firm, and they've grown quickly. In 18 months, they grew from 33, I think, to 330 staff members. And they actually approached me. They wanted to embed a cadetship program from the start of their company. So that's a really good sign. So for students who are interested in a business career, this is a good springboard to launch that career. Rather than waiting, until they've finished their degree, they can launch it from February, the February following the year they finish their HSC. It's only open to Year 12 students. So if they're interested, they need to apply this year, because once they're out of school and at uni or wherever, they're no longer eligible. And essentially, it gives them a competitive edge over graduates 3 and 4 years down the track who have typically in Australia, Australian uni students, as I'm sure you know, do a lot of part-time work. You'd never earn the sort of money that you earn in a cadetship doing part-time jobs. It's not just about the money, but they are paid a salary and they're paid very well. It's performance appraised. They're encouraged, so it goes up year by year. They're encouraged to do well at university, and the firms typically pay a bonus based on university results. So the way it works is students study at the university of their choice with paid work, and the university of their choice needs to be in Sydney for this main program. We don't play favourites. It's really their choice. The only constraint is geography. So the example I usually use is if the student wanted to study at Western Sydney University Penrith campus, it wouldn't be possible because, you know, these companies are headquartered in the city of Sydney and the kids live wherever they live. So with that as the only constraint, it is their choice of uni. And similarly, there's a broad range of subjects degree areas they can choose from. Sure, most cadets are studying business, economics or commerce, but they don't have to be, and not all of them are. So students interested in the humanities are equally well placed because they get a skill set studying, you know, he's majoring in history or English that is relevant to, or philosophy or whatever that is relevant to a business career. Students interested in computer science and technology are also welcome, mathematics. So really generalist degree areas, many or most of them are suitable for the cadetship program because again, it's acknowledging you pick a skill set up from university that's relevant for a business career. Some combined degrees are possible too, and plenty of our cadets do those. What isn't possible is a vocationally specific degree. So someone's contemplating studying engineering, for instance, or architecture or whatever, that's not going to fit for a whole lot of reasons, but they do have a huge latitude. It's important to companies that provide the cadetships that the students are able to do well at uni, and by and large, gee, they do. We've placed 251 cadets over the years, and some of them have done startlingly well, and all of them have done well. So the urban myth that don't do a cadetship because your uni results will suffer is patently not true. The other thing is that we're looking for busy people. So if you, you know, in the case of I think Vicky, you're the parent, aren't you? Or did I get it the wrong way around? Donna's the parent, you're the careers advisor. Anyway, whatever. If you have a student,
I'm actually both.
No, you're both.
My son is looking at a cadetship as well. He's in year 12.
Okay, well,
so you got it both right.
Still. Okay, so if your son or you know, daughter in that case, Donna, whatever, if they're good at school, if they're doing well at school, not starting well necessarily, they're just a good student, but they're juggling other things. Maybe he or she plays a sport, or, you know, sings in a choir, or is involved in some community activity, or works at McDonald's or whatever. That's a really good litmus test for us, because this cadetship program, if you're a cadet, you splice study and work, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But at the front end, we're looking for the students who have good transferable skills. Yes, they're doing well at school, but they're a good team player and they can demonstrate that. They've got leadership potential. They may not have been a leader at this stage, but we look for potential. They've got plenty of personal motivation. They may have had some work experience, paid or unpaid. Those are the sorts of things that we're looking for. There is an ATAR, a nominal ATAR cutoff of 86.25, but we don't sweat that. Essentially, if the school, when they write their school assessment, says they're capable of that or better, that's fine. And some people think, oh, you're dumbing the program down. We're not. That's the top 15% of the state. You have, you know, you've got enough intelligence to do a cadetship if you've got that sort of potential or better. If you've got a student who at this stage is, you know, looking like they've got potential, but they haven't quite got that level of attainment, I'd still encourage them to apply. So the splice of study and work, it depends on where you work. UBS have really said over the years, in the first 2 years you work full-time, the second 2 years you study full-time. It flips. So first 2 years work full-time, study part-time. Last 2 years it flips. Now I've said 2 + 2, but it depends on the student. They may do their degree quicker than that, or they may do it longer. It depends on what they're studying, where they're studying, and where they're placed at the firm. With Barrenjoey and now Macquarie, they're more saying we'll look at cadets on an individual basis and work out a pattern of study and work that works. Now, there are many degrees, particularly combined degrees, that universities are apt to say can only be studied full-time. They'll still fit with a cadetship. And we've got plenty of cases of students having done, say, commerce law or arts law and fitted that in with a cadetship. Bear in mind that a single degree is only 12 hours face-to-face, probably divided by 2 because you don't actually necessarily have to go to lectures. Combined degree a bit longer. So that's the study work combination. Yes, they're paid, they're mentored, and they have a buddy from the very start. When I present in schools, I'm at pains to say that this is not work experience. This is work. You are starting a job at the beginning of February. And because the cadetship program has been very successful, a lot's expected of cadets. They don't go to the corner for 4 years with their calculator or their laptop, or make the coffee or the tea or, anything else horrible that you can think of. This is the real deal. And I'm always, even 15 years down the track, I'm still blown away by the level of responsibility cadets are given. They're not thrown to the lions, not straight away. Remember, they've got a buddy, but once they find their feet, they take off. And I also say in schools, typically to students, look, if you're prepared to put in some hard yards in the first 2 years, then lots of flexible opportunity comes your way after the first 2 years. So for instance, some cadets are able to go on a brief uni exchange for a couple of months. Some cadets even have the opportunity maybe of a stint in an overseas office briefly. So, there's all sorts of opportunity that really is amazing. In terms of applications, students apply online to PCA, and it's on our website. And after this is over, I'll send Lucy a number of things, a soft copy of the program brochure, but also a version of the film and the PowerPoint I use in schools that's got a voiceover. And hopefully when you get the link and play it wherever you play it to your students or at home, it won't buffer like the video did, because that was awful. We had a woman's voice and a man's face and all sorts of things, but it is a pretty slick video, so it will work for you, wherever you are. I think I'm on satellite, NBN via satellite, where I'm in the Hunter Valley, and Lucy's a long way away in Cairns, and I suspect that somewhere between the two, there's been an issue, so my apologies. So the application process, they apply online to us. We ask some obvious things about name, rank, and serial number, and then we ask them 7 questions. There's no wrong or right answers, but we do say to students, take care with your applications. Whether you're a careers advisor or a parent or both, advise your student or son or daughter to take great care. And I always suggest they download their application and draft it, and then show it to someone who's, got insight, who knows them well, and whose opinion they trust, because perhaps question 4, they didn't answer the question, or perhaps question 2, they didn't really put their foot forward, the best foot forward. This is the first program of this kind to open each year, and I hope that your student or students get an offer, but even if they don't, they'll learn from the process, because it's really about brand them. They're putting themselves together and putting themselves out there. And I also advise strongly to get someone to proofread their application form, because, bloopers like USB rather than UBS or Barrenjoey with 1R, that doesn't look good. And I'm speaking to adults here, so we all know that. We've all applied for a job, so we all know that, but kids don't necessarily. And, to play a gender card, boys in particular can be slapshot. We track what time these people apply, and some of them apply at 3 a.m. And I always say, I don't know about you, but I'm not all that flash at 3 a.m. So all those obvious parent and careers advisor comments that you can make, please do. And as soon as they lodge that application form, they're prompted online to download a letter and really take it to their careers advisor. The careers advisor then knows who at the school should write the school assessment. It might be the careers advisor, it could be the economics teacher, it could be the deputy head. It doesn't matter to us as long as it's a member of staff who knows them well. We treat it in confidence, so the student doesn't see the assessment. We ask some questions about academic ability, but more importantly about their suitability for a cadetship, because we don't know them, the school does. There's sometimes an interim step after those two. What I should have said too is that the school assessment is due on the same day as the application form. So, if you know a student, or if it's your son or daughter who wants to apply, encourage them. The deadline's the 25th of May, that's the Wednesday of week 3. Encourage them to get going now on it and work out with the school who is going to write their school assessment. Don't let them dump on the poor careers advisor or whoever it is, the day before or the day of. We've all had that experience. It's not a good one. there's sometimes an interim step of psychometric assessment, but whether we ask them to sit that or not, we decide from the application process who we're going to call to first. It's a one-on-one interview either with myself or with a colleague. Both of us have a school background. My colleague was also a careers advisor. He went on to be deputy head. I was an English teacher and then became a careers advisor. So we know the space they're in. We try to make the interview, we try to make them feel comfortable with the interview. We don't want to trap them, trick them, or put their nerves on edge, because we want to get the best from them. So again, we're thinking of their development. So we hope they get put forward. Even if they don't, they'll learn from the interview. It's about a 40-minute interview. We hold them at the Sydney Pullman Hyde Park in town in the July holidays, and they get to ask us some questions at the end, and then we give them some on-the-spot feedback, just informal verbal feedback, so that if they are put forward to one of the companies, they've got some insight into how they went in their first round, or if they miss out whatever else they apply for, they can learn from that. The companies then run, the students can only be referred to one company, and we make a call on that, and we discuss that with the student, and we'd never put them forward for something that, they weren't comfortable for. The companies then run selection after the trials in September, and provisional offers are made usually by the first week of the October holidays. They're provisional because they haven't yet got a uni offer, they haven't yet got an ATAR. They send them a screenshot of their uni offer in January, and they start work at the beginning of February. And I think that's more than that was well over 10 minutes. Sorry, Lucy, that's more than enough from me. So I hope, Donna and Vicky, that hasn't sort of completely lost you. Are there questions that you might have?
No, that's great. That covers everything.
Sorry, Donna.
And what about you, Vicky?
No, I'm fine. I think you've explained it really well, particularly what they need to have done and what they need to have demonstrated. I suppose a lot of the students think they need to be a really, really high-performing student to go for something like this. So it's interesting to see that what the ADAR, I suppose, cutoff is, and that's quite reasonable. So a lot of students that might have ruled themselves out might like to have a go.
And that's the phrase "have a go." That's right on the money, Vicky. And that's every time I present in schools, I always say, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, this is one set of opportunities. If you like what you see, have a go, because what have you got to lose? Nothing, just a bit of time. And similarly, co-op scholarships, whatever else. Kids tend to self-select themselves out of it. It's exactly what you just said. They sit on their hands, and now I play a gender card skewed towards girls. They typically look around and think, oh, if she's applying, they're just students at my own school. I wouldn't stand a chance. So they sit on their hands. So we're trying desperately to say this is an inclusive program. All our cadetship programs are, and you can't win it if you don't throw your hat into the ring. So that's so important, and the fact that we don't discriminate on the basis of where they go to school or their cultural background or the gender. We want a diverse range, and the companies want a diverse range of young people. And to be honest, when we get to first round interviews, that's the best part of my job. That blows me away all these years later, that there's such depth of talent out there, such engaged, switched on young people. Yeah, they're bright. They're all bright. They don't have to be, as you said, Vicky, geniuses, just bright young people who are, willing to give this a go and give it their best shot. I find that really innovating. So, spread the word if you can.
Oh, hi, Alister. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'll put my camera on.
Hi, Kit.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I missed the first 5 minutes, so I just sort of said hello. Yeah, I'm a careers teacher at Aurora College, which is Department of Education New South Wales virtual college. So it's actually a comprehensive high school. So we get a lot of gifted and talented students who really do have an interest in maths, I suppose, and business is that, and STEM subjects. So this sort of thing would be ideal for them. So thank you for the opportunity to join in. And yeah, I can't wait to actually share it with them.
And we have another program in engineering and technology. It's not running this year, but it will run next year in technology. But this year we're encouraging students, increasingly, not just financial services firms, all firms are really interested in students with technical and mathematical skills. So, 4 years ago, we placed the first quantitative analysts at UBS. Now that's a world first. There's no one in the world doing that. And I'm not putting tickets on myself or UBS, but typically a quant had to have a PhD. So, they recognise that you can get a young person who's bright at maths, good at maths, and who's interested in computer science, and they're a great fit for that. But we're not saying that that's the only skills you have to have, but there's a place for them. I guess particularly since you missed a bit, I will send Lucy a link to the film, and then it rolls into a pre-recorded PowerPoint with a voiceover. And for all three of you, and Lucy as well, of course, feel free to share that with your students, with with colleagues at your school, other schools, because it's a sort of a self-contained package. It runs for 6.5 minutes, and it covers it much more succinctly than I have bumbling on, tonight. So that'll come through.
Yeah, thanks, Alister. I just had one quick question, actually. Can you talk for a minute just about what happens to the students after they finish their cadetship? Do they automatically roll
Sure.
onto a job with the company, or do they tend to look for something else? What normally happens?
Okay, it depends on the firm. Until relatively recently, a firm like UBS, who's huge globally, 66,000, but fairly small in Australia, 500, it's still one of the biggest investment banks apart from Macquarie. They couldn't hope to retain all their cadets, even if they'd wanted to. But increasingly they are retaining. But essentially the cadetship lasts for as long as the degree. And at that point, the cadet is free to either apply for an opportunity at that firm or move on. And in the past, it's probably 50-50 retention and move on in this program in engineering and technology. But really with Barrenjoey and Macquarie, that's different again, because I think they're trying to grow their young talent from this base. But I think the important thing is, I learned as a careers advisor in the old days when the big four accounting firms had cadetship programs, they had a specific program, one of 3 unis, and you had to have a return of service of 2 years. And increasingly the students at the school I was a careers advisor at were balking at that because it was like a straitjacket. What we're saying is it's a year-by-year cadetship. If you decide after your first year or even before then that it's not for you, that's okay. You can walk away. There's no default clause, but very few have. And then at the end of your cadetship, you can choose to, if there's an opportunity there, go for it. And typically if you go for it as a cadet, you get it, or you can spread your wings. And of the 251 cadets we've placed, probably about 140 of them have since rolled on. Some have stayed in financial services. Some have spread their wings and gone to other business areas. Some have gone overseas, and a number have started their own businesses. So again, it comes back to where I started. These may be financial services companies, top tier financial services companies, but it's a springboard for a business career. And students or cadets have that flexibility. So they get both. I think they're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely. Anyone else have any other questions? I think we've got a couple more minutes.
I've got a few students that we're looking at doing something like this are actually high performing students. But when I looked at what else they had done, they were involved in pretty much nothing at school or outside school. They were completely focused on their studies and weren't doing much else, in spite of our pleas to get involved and do other things. Yep. Should a student like that still be looking for something like this? Because it doesn't seem to fit well together. That if you're not good at balancing outside activities and having a life with study, that maybe it's not the right choice for them. What's your advice in relation to that?
Well, Vicky, it's a tricky one. I know exactly what you're saying, and it's particularly a problem in selective schools. And you can't necessarily very quickly invent stuff, can you? But on the other hand, it's surprising with a bit of help from the side what some of those students can pull out of their toolbox. For instance, they'll say they've done no work experience, but I bet nearly every kid has babysat, whether they've been paid or not. Then you scratch a bit further and you find that they're in a coaching clinic, or that they're passionate about playing chess. So sometimes with those smart cookies who seem to have just done their study, there is light in the end of the tunnel. Certainly if they're in year 11, all you can say is encourage them to have a life. And also every year when you read all those media reports about the top students, you rarely, if ever, find one who's just done the HSC or the VCE or whatever. They're all doing stuff, and they talk about work-life balance. So I guess you can showcase them. But yeah, like you, I've taught some pretty smart cookies in my time, but not all of them would have made good cadets. And I guess for those students, they're probably more likely to want to go to uni and just concentrate on university. And they'll be the ones who believe the urban myth that the uni results will suffer if they do cadetship. You can only do so much in that sense. But encourage them, if they want to have a crack, because who knows, unbeknownst to you or me, they might have some hidden talents outside the classroom.
Makes sense. So something like sporting, for example, that'd be something they'd be looking for, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we say team involvement. Actually, that was the competency I left out. And they can demonstrate that any way they like. And sometimes students think, oh, well, I'll have to be playing in the top hockey team and we'll have to be winning the comp. We don't care if it's the first or the 16th, and if they come first in the comp or last, it's what they learned from being a team player in a hockey team. And similarly, however humble their work experience, they're sometimes shy of talking about McDonald's. I love McDonald's. I think it's a great thing to have on your resume that because they've trained you. They may or may not have exploited you with the product, something else. But the point is, we all know what sort of skills you acquire from packing shelves at Woolies or working at McDonald's or, waitressing or whatever it might be. And who knows that, yeah, they might have something. COVID's hasn't been a disruptor for all of us, but we've had to be very lenient last year and the year before in the sense that we're interested in what students are doing in year 12 as well as the HSC or the VCE or whatever. But of course, COVID's shot a whole lot of stuff across their bows and we have to accept that. But we can say at an interview, well, yeah, but what were you doing back in year 10, or in year 9 even? Yeah.
Could I just get a quick question in before you go? Sorry, and hold everyone up.
That's right.
Just as an adjunct to what I was referring to our student cohort at the moment, we have high functioning autistic students as well who, would have a certain number of social skills, but not necessarily what you would be looking for in an interview scenario. Does that what I mean? You sort of get what I mean, the characteristics.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Would it be worthwhile me advising those students to participate in something like this, or it's really not something that they'd fit into?
Kim, that's a really good question. I've had similar question in previous years, and it's a tricky one to field. Yeah. I think I'd defer to your professional judgment. I'm not an expert on autism, but I know that there are degrees of autism, and there are different types of autism. So what I'd suggest tentatively is size them up. And if you think, well, okay, there's some sort of learning difficulty or some sort of deficit, but I think that they could hold their own at an interview, well then by all means. But if you sort of in your professional judgment, they would struggle with an interview, then I think what we're doing is setting them up for an embarrassing situation. And I really would want to avoid that, because for pretty well all these young people, this is their first real job interview, and we want to make it a positive experience, whether we put them forward or not. My most excruciating experience, and I'll share this with you, last year we had to do our 150 interviews, Russell and I, the other interviewer, online because we were all locked down. And I had a student really nice young fellow, who had a really bad stutter, and there were a few other problems. And you imagine what Zoom did with the stutter. And I sort of thought at the time, if I was in an interview room with him, I could have really helped here. But really, it was very, very difficult. But I gave him as much benefit as I could. But in terms of autism and other learning difficulties, I think perhaps it's putting it back on you. Sorry, you make a call on the degree to which, and if you think, look. I guess the litmus test is put them through a 10-minute or a 5-minute dummy interview with you or with someone else, just on, 4 quick questions. And if they really struggle with that, I think it would be difficult to put them forward. But if they make a fist of it, well, then maybe that's something they can work on, because we are inclusive. We don't want to count people out, these firms, I can probably say without fear of a doubt, all of these firms would be employing some people with disabilities of some degree, whether physical, emotional, whatever. So does that sort of that's the best I can give in response, Yeah, okay. Lucy, how are we going?
Yeah, we're about 5 minutes over, but I think it's been really, really valuable. Thank you so much for your time. If anyone does have any more questions, I will share this video, and I'll also share, Alister, if that's okay with you, I'll share your email address with the careers advice.
Please do, yeah.
Yeah. So
and encourage your students and kids, if they've got a question they want an answer, just email me. It's quicker to do it. They'll get a response the same day usually. So thanks a lot, Vicky, and thanks, Donna, and nice to meet you. Who was that last person who just came in? Jessica. Yeah, sorry. Okay. All right, thank you, and all the best, and thank you very much for setting us up, Lucy.
No, not a problem. My pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Vicky.
Yeah.